Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of 6 Degrees of Associations. I am your host, Lucas McCann. With me today, Bill Scott, President, CEO of CFA Society of Washington. Welcome, Bill.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'll turn the microphone over to you. Tell us a little bit about CFA Society of Washington, your current role, and then we'll backtrack into how you found associations. A good story.
Sure. So the CFA Society of Washington, D.C. is one of about 160 approximately CFA societies around the world. What we all have in common, all of our members are involved in professional investment management, and financial analysts, portfolio managers, etc. The majority, 98% of my members, have the CFA charter, which is issued by the CFA Institute. So we're all separate legal entities, but loosely affiliated, like a federation kind of, with the CFA Institute. DC is my society. It's the society my staff and I run. We have about 2,000 members, roughly, and our territory, if you will, is all of DC and the surrounding Virginia, Maryland counties. So
I always wondered if you can find yourself within the district, or do you get a little grace period, to the greater DMV?
yeah, no, we I mean, it's funny. We, as members, they can join any society, as many as they want or none. So we very much compete on it. It's member value. What's our member value proposition to get? And we have members being close to New York that belong to the Philadelphia and the New York societies as well. They're
Okay.
always on a train. We work with students at universities, and we had a university in Northern Virginia assume that since they weren't in DC, we weren't the right society for them to be talking to. And it was a little bit of shame on us for not reaching out. You are absolutely in our territory. Happy to help. We routinely speak to students about MBA students, a lot of students in Masters of Finance, considering getting the charter and a career in investment management. So
Excellent. I don't think I ever told you this, Bill, but I don't have a finance background necessarily. I graduated many moons ago with an econ major, but just after that, I decided, why not CFA, right? Be a chartered financial
yeah,
analyst. And I spent a few months at Starbucks, coming home every night smelling like burnt beans, studying the books. And I came just a couple of points away from passing it on my first chance, and then I moved on. But it is a very prestigious certification, is my understanding, and that was part of the draw for me. But the test is also very difficult.
yeah. There's three tests you have to pass: levels 1, 2, and 3. It's the only one of the only certifications I know you can get a very good job having passed 2/3 of it.
Yeah.
When you're a level 3 candidate, that goes on the resume, and you can get hired. It's amazing. So I teased the members. I was a finance major in college. I had a professor, my investments 1 and 2 professor, made sure we knew what that was. So when I got out of school, my first license plate was my initials CFA. So I tell them, never had the designation, but I've had the license plate for 8 years.
There you go. Well, let's wind the clock back then, Bill. How did you land in associations?
It's interesting. I mean, like most people, I've asked. I haven't yet met a person who's intentionally gone to college, gone to school to end up in the association world. We all kind of end up in different paths. Mine's an interesting story. I was in right out of school. It was a tough time for finance majors. No one was hiring young kids with a finance degree to tell them the markets were bad. They knew that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I ended up for a couple of years working in retail operations, which moved me around a lot, traveling. And as
Yeah.
I was getting engaged and I was looking for something more stable. Um, I started to look at different jobs, and I came across ASA's website and found what was my first association job. So I found it. My wife, now fiance at the time, worked for a newer AMS company. They were trying to sell an AMS to that association, so they heard of that she pointed it to me. You should check this out. And then my dad, who worked in commercial banking, had a colleague whose daughter was the one leaving the position, creating the opening. So I thought, wow, this is the stars lining up. How do you not apply to that? And the rest is kind of history. I stumbled into it, I guess you could say.
And she kept you around, or something kept you around. Why stick?
She kept me around. The I guess it was about 5 or 6 months into the my first association job that I really started to understand what associations are, how they work, the concept of being mission driven, and what I really fell in love with as far as the industry and knew I found my home, my professional home, um, was that uniqueness. I mean, you look at the people as association professionals. We've no problem doing something like this, sharing best practices, vendor recommendations, anything. Competition's not as big of a deal. In the for-profit world, when I look around, I see non-competes, non-disclosures, compliance requirements that prohibit members from actually contributing things. The idea that people would come together as professionals and donate their time and expertise towards advancing the mission. I came from for profit. We had to pay people, stock incentives. You worked for stakeholders. Uh,
Hmm.
you don't have that. It was new. And in the nonprofit world, we're mission driven. Revenue supports mission. In the for profit world, revenue drives mission. If you don't have enough revenue, you either change the mission or something has to shift, right? I mean,
Cease to exist, right?
these do exist. All those, it was intriguing to me. And I got such I don't know, I just fell in love with the whole concept of it and realized this is where I need to be. And 26, 27 years later, still here, still don't want to do anything but association management. I've had members
Yeah,
twice along the way try to recruit me into their industry. Thank you,
sure.
but no,
I bet.
this is what I do. So
Well, you did mention sort of before the show, there is one element, though, from those days that you brought in and this sort of beat yesterday mentality that you believe has a place. And you shared, you believe it's helped you be successful in this role. Tell us a little bit about, how you bring the beat yesterday mentality and how you perceive that.
yeah, so what I was sharing is what attracts me to the industry is the difference between nonprofit and for profit. But ironically, one of the things that keeps me going is a kind of a for profit creed of beat yesterday. So you want to have more sales today than we did yesterday. You want more sales today than you did a year ago today. Um, so I've kept that as part of me and how I operate throughout the years. And I think I've tried to transition it for the nonprofit. So beat yesterday isn't just a sales number necessarily. That could be grow more, more members, higher retention rate, more certification applications, whatever it is. That combined with being a finance major and loving numbers and metrics, that's kind of kept me going. Numerous discussions with boards over the years have been very helpful to be able to say, why are we doing this? Why do we not need to keep doing this other thing? Um, we're not beating yesterday if something's dragging us down. So
Do you have something that kind of stands out to you where you go, "Hey, we're beating yesterday really well in this category"?
yeah, so we took a hit. I was talking the other day. We got hurt by the pandemic. Membership,
Hmm.
for a membership organization of financial professionals, when the market crashed in 2008, from 2008 to 9 is the only year we didn't grow. We were the exact
Hmm.
same number. It's really wild. The pandemic did hurt us. We did lose membership. We dipped a little bit, but we've been coming back. And looking at our year over year renewal rate, we're 6.7% up this year with renewal. So
Hmm.
I am frantically digging through. I think I know why, but I want to know specifically why. What are we doing that has it had this result, so we can do more of it? Are we sending better emails, different emails? So more and more of our programs that we've been doing, we've changed out the program committee. They're starting to sell out. We're riding the coattails of that. Is there a little more FOMO, fear of missing out, from people who were members, that there's some of them are starting to come back.
So it sounds like you kind of stole my next question before I got a chance to ask it. And maybe the answer is now we're still looking into it. I was going to say, what do you think is leading to this beating yesterday growth year over year since that point? I mean, is that you're casting a bigger net? What's the focus on values, levels of membership, and do you have a guess?
I think it's the communication, is my best guess so far.
Yeah.
And we've tailored the communications a lot more. So while we're sending more emails, they're not the same email to everybody. There's more tailored messaging. We do about 5 emails. We'll start from right as membership renewal opens till, so sorry your membership lapsed. Surely you didn't
Mm-hmm.
mean to lose that charter. It was worth so much to you.
Surely.
Click here and you can come back. We're reaching out to every category of member differently because those are different messages. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's probably part of what's resonating a little more. Um, and we're starting to incorporate some of the member value in there. One of the tricks I saw someone else do years ago that I've done is divide it by 365, and for 11 cents a day. you we're trying different ways to show value. So including pictures, including testimonials, we're trying a bunch of different things. So lots of variables, but the bottom line is it's working.
Yeah. One of the other things we talked about sort of before the show again was this idea of transparency in those communications, right? Let's put out on the front end what the value statement is and the costs. Talk to us a little bit about sort of that idea, cost first. Why hide it?
Yeah, that's, I think one of the things that's always kind of been a pet peeve of mine are, I go out of my way to have a signature block. So if you get an email from me, you can find me. My email's there, my phone number's there. If we have a golf tournament coming up, there's a picture which is clickable below it. We really want to be transparent and communicate with people. And our sponsorship program, for example, we have a lot of different things you can do, um, as far as sponsorship, and try to put everything out on the website. Put it out there. Be transparent. You can sponsor events. Here's what they call. You can be an annual sponsor. Here are the packages, some of the benefits, and the cost. So you have an idea what we're trying to get across to you. Um, I get emails all the time. We all do. People trying to sell us things. And
Mm-hmm.
here's an AI and associations webinar. I'm like, great. I'm interested in that. You read through it. Still interested. What date is it? Oh, I'm available that day. Trying to find the price. Why do I have to be 3 to 4 pages deep before I find out that's $4,000? Okay, now I'm not as interested anymore in a half-hour webinar. I'll find that somewhere else. I've talked to people about sponsorships. It's important to our association, so we am constantly looking to see what other people are doing for best practices. And a lot of people hide their pricing, it seems like, and I've never understood why. Uh,
Yeah, I say my best guess is that they either want to use the whole event or opportunity as sort of a lead magnet, and that they feel like, well, if I get you in and entice you enough, then I could waste your time on a 30-minute meeting only to tell you the price later. Is that the idea?
it feels like it sometimes. And I was just on a Zoom call the other day with about 60 other CFA societies from Europe and North America, and people were sharing their best practices. And I just threw it out as a question because I was curious. Here's a good way to ask this: do any of you share your pricing? And no, nobody really does. You have to call that contact, and if you can't, if I need to spend the money by the end of the month or the end of the week because it's December. I'm looking to spend my budget, and that person's out, I can't do that. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for you. It's an obstacle for me to do business with you. I view that's my view. So we try to put as much out there as we can, and then we have a tell me more button. So if you hit the tell me more button in the under the silver annual dinner sponsorship,
Yeah.
that sends an email to myself and our sponsorship manager, and she knows right away. She can get back to you at the phone number or email you left, and she knows your question is about the silver sponsorship. um,
And they know that you know how much it costs.
yeah, you're kind of a qualified lead at that point. You're not afraid of the cost. You may have another question, so that's fine. But I don't know if people are afraid that they'll lose people if they put too much out there. But we get from that tell me more option for our sponsorships, we get those communications all year. So I'm worried how many people I'm losing if I don't have enough information out there. They get frustrated and just spend the money somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I love that notion of you don't know how much you're losing if you put it out there, but you don't know how much you're losing if you don't. It kind of cuts both ways.
It does.
Yeah. And I would suggest that if you, as you said, it's qualified, you know that somebody's genuinely interested. They know the price point. I assume they're not going to call in and waste your sponsorship manager's time if they don't have the budget. Otherwise, what are we doing? Um, and you mentioned sort of pre-call, you're also looking for, good sponsors who really want to be partnered with CFA Society of Washington. What does that mean to you, a good partner?
A good partner, I think it depends if it's for a service like a vendor, like IT support or something like that. It's someone who takes the time, not necessarily a sponsor, but it's someone takes the time to meet us where we're at, to figure out what we're trying to accomplish, so they know how best to help us or tell us we we can't help you, but maybe somebody else could. And as a small society, honestly, I've run into that with IT support. Most of the companies I would initially look into, we're not big enough for. We're too small. So that helps me. Tell me right away, and I'll keep looking. In sponsors, I've had the dream sponsor, I guess, where they liked what we do. We coordinate the local community of investment professionals that they can hire from as they're growing. And
Mm-hmm.
it was almost too good to be true. We're so much of the time it's kind of what's in it for me, how many seats am I getting, what's my discount, or they're like, no, we like what you do, we want to support you. Like, wow, okay, that's probably too good to be true. But we had that. Others, it's a mixture, it's a win-win. Always trying to figure out if we're negotiating a contract or trying to sell a sponsorship. I would like it to be a win-win. I'd like this to be a long-term relationship, um,
Mm-hmm.
where you trust that we're not trying to take advantage of you, and you're not trying to, nickel and dime us down to something that we can't do. So does it make sense for both?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've learned over time there's a handful of questions typically that I like to ask at the beginning of those relationships to sort of uncover, what how did you get here? Why this particular level of sponsorship or us? What does success look like? What are you hoping to achieve? I think you find you start asking these questions, not everybody fits into the same box. I'm curious, do you have these sort of questions, whether you verbalize them or think them, that help you explore whether this is the right partner for you all?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think we're doing that I haven't seen a lot of other groups do is we're really trying to grow, as I call it, like a comprehensive sponsorship program. We don't just sell tables at our annual dinner. We don't just look for sponsors for our webinar. We have a variety of different sponsorships for, we like to say, for any budget, any serious budget.
Yeah.
And depending on what the objective of the firm is. So we want to be able to sit down and say, what are you trying to accomplish? And that usually fits into three categories. Are you looking for brand awareness? Are you for us, New York, Baltimore, Boston, and Chicago are really the money towns. Are you from
Hmm.
Chicago and you're trying to break into the DC market? Is brand awareness the most important thing to you? Community engagement. Do you want to just come to the events and meet the members and shake hands and try to get deals that way, or do you want to be seen as a thought leader? Are you doing research and putting white papers out? And what we found is it depends on who you're talking to. We, there might be an asset manager, and we're just in their sales. We're just in this person's. We're in her territory, and what I
Hmm.
found is she has a budget for meeting people. She, Someone else's job back in New York is in charge of brand awareness and thought leadership, not her. She
Yeah.
has so much money to spend on not just our society either, to meet people and build relationships and get deals. So it's more the regional firms where we have a chance to really meet the CMO, the chief investment officer, people whose job it is for that, those bigger aspirations, and they have more budget. So be having enough options, having a broad enough program that we have multiple solutions enables us to honestly have that sit down discussion. Say, who do you want to get in front of? What is it you're hoping to achieve? Here's a couple things we can do that
Yeah.
might help you get there so that it's that win win.
Well, and all that, I really appreciate the serious budget aspect of that, and we kind of can giggle. Yeah, it's a serious. You have to have a serious budget, but it's true. Holding the line on the value and not sort of giving it away. I like the idea of having sort of a menu, but you also have to have a baseline
Yeah.
of seriousness, as you said it, in order to make sure that you're further qualifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what it's just, we have multiple for our annual dinner. We have about 10 different levels of sponsorship. They're the precious metals as you run through ruby, sapphire, all the way up to diamond. We have one level that we've never, ever, ever sold. We'll sell out the one below it and then sell out the one above it. And I just, people like, well, my board's like, why do you even have that? I'm like, because in some way, I think, it's $8,000. That $8,000 level is really making people decide, am I a six or a 10? And it's pushing tens up because we're selling the tens. So it's not worth getting rid of it, but it's just hysterical that nobody ever wants that. They'd rather spend more.
That's funny. It's a little bit, I mean, when you said that, it made me think of, if you go to McDonald's or you go somewhere and you buy a drink, right? And the
Yeah.
small size is $1.59, the medium's $1.69, and the large is $1.89. Like, who would ever go for the middle? Either you don't want that much, or for another 20 cents, you can have the big one.
Yeah. Go, Costco, kind of same thing. You go buy a head of lettuce, or you go to Costco and you buy six heads, you're not going to eat it all, but it's cheaper to buy six than it is two. I'll
Right.
buy six and throw away two. Fine.
It would still win. It's still a
It's still a
win-win
win. And
somehow.
somehow it's, and the pricing is like, where else do you have that? You go to buy a car, there's a sticker on it that tells you what this car
Hmm.
costs. You go to buy a garment, a shirt, there's a tag in the shirt that tells you what they want for it.
Right.
Why is sponsorship a mystery?
Why hide
Why
it?
hide it? I don't get it,
Yeah.
but that's just maybe me and possibly you feel that way.
No, I'm in. Yeah, I'm with you. Well, tell us a little bit more about the annual dinner, because I think that idea is unique, and the breakdown on the menu you have, and it's been a success for you all. Yes.
Yeah, it is our marquee event. It's for our area. It's become kind of the who's who event of the professional financial investment industry. We attract hundreds of people each year. It's grown over time. It's really a sponsor event, and when I realized that and treated it as that, this is an event we do for sponsors. The registration alone, I mean, it's always at a hotel, nice dinner. We put so much work into it, way more than anyone else does. Any of the other 159 other societies. Um, we while I don't enjoy particularly watching the Oscars or the Grammys on TV, that's the environment we try to create at our annual dinner, though. So it's a special event. We use lighting and music to influence the audience, to amp them up, to quiet them down.
Yeah.
Um, we maintained a very high bar. It's hard to get CEOs from Fortune 100 companies, but we hold out, and we're very hard to get top level people that you normally wouldn't get to have access to.
Hmm.
We try to almost insist that we do the fireside chat, so you get that intimate.
Hmm.
We take questions from the audience. We have people that get to ask the commanders. Was the owner of the Commanders, Josh Harris, was our last speaker, and there were people in the room that got to ask him, "What's going on with the stadium? Where else are you going to get to do that?"
That's a whole nother show that we're going to have to
That's a
do.
whole
But
nother
yes.
show. But I mean, even the sponsors, we thank them and acknowledge them every single way we can, from signs to illuminated logos on the walls. I started a private reception for sponsors that the non-sponsor firms can see. Create a little
Yeah.
FOMO. But the feedback is fantastic. All of that work, it's great when I have colleagues from other CFA societies attending mine, just to see. They tell me yours is next level. Ours is a little stale. I want to come see what you do because we've heard it's good. Or sponsors saying, "Gosh, this is the year we took a year off from sponsoring. I wish we didn't because of this, and that." And it really, really works well for us. It's what we're known for. So at this
Yeah.
point, it's kind of our calling card. So
Well, I like it because it's a great use of the sort of the geographical representation of CFA Society of Washington D.C. because that's sort of the best part about Washington, right? Is you can pull together people and have those type of 5-star type events and be able to hear from people uh, that you otherwise may not be able to hear from at certain times, and that's a very Washingtonian thing in a great way. In the same right, if you were an association headquartered in Napa, it would make sense for you to have something at the grandest vineyard, right?
sure.
And be able to talk to the vintners of the best of the best.
Yeah, I mean, ev all of our members in the U.S. are regulated by the SEC. In DC, we can get them to some of the commissioners to show up at our events because it's right down the street. So,
Right.
to have regulators at our event isn't unheard of. Uh, so it's a little bit of
Amazing.
a local thing that we have that probably some of our other societies don't.
Yeah. Lean in.
So you leverage what you can.
Yeah. Well, how about Bill? A couple of fun ones. What is something that you look forward to every year? Come January 1, it's going on your calendar. It's almost non-negotiable.
Um, for me, probably the number one thing is still the ASAE conference annual meeting. I love that event. It's a little special to me in that I got engaged the night before my first one. My wife worked for an AMS company, and they were going to Nashville to exhibit, and I got to tag along. So I got to go to the ASE conference before I was actually even in association management.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that. But over the years, at first when I was starting out the education, to be amongst thousands of people that talk about things that I do, that we both do, and have in common was fantastic. And then over the years, as I've learned more and more, it became more about the relationships. Um, Having to fly to Dallas to catch up with people that live 13 miles from my home, but we're all too busy during the year to even see each other. The opportunity
So
to
true.
renew those relationships has been fantastic. But nowadays, honestly, the exhibit hall has become my favorite part. I see I have less and less time to get out to events. I love to
Hmm.
walk the exhibit hall and see what's the new technology, who has new innovative things they're doing. Always looking for non-dues revenue streams, right? So hearing and seeing what other people are doing, fantastic. I usually can, without doubt, bring back at least one or two ideas to present to the board. So always goes on my calendar.
Wonderful. Well, speaking of another fun question, and you created a segue I didn't know you were going to do, but
Oops.
speaking of approval from the board, if you could wave the magic wand, so to speak, and money were not an issue, do you have a program in mind that you would implement, right away?
Hmm. I mean, the first thing as a small society, the first thing I would is probably use the wand to get an extra staff person or two. I think just to further specialize.
Yeah.
Um, Program, we took a shot over the years that I think I've been starting my ninth year now here. We took a shot at doing less smaller programs and more bigger marquee
Hmm.
programs. And we did one on ESG that was very, very well done, very well received. We just couldn't quite make it work financially. I think that's one
Hmm.
I would like to go back and re-engineer, but it's just a little too expensive currently without the magic wand to do.
Yeah. Well, you never know when it's going to come back around. That's right.
True.
Well, Bill, I always have the unfortunate task of wrapping us up and closing out our show. But I would love to ask you, do you have somebody in your network you think that our audience would benefit from hearing from?
I'm always interested to watch people who have come from the industry and get involved with the association and
Hmm.
then decide they for profit world, non for profit world is for them as well. Um, and my first boss did that. Came from the contracting world, was very volunteer in the chapter system, became staff, taught me everything I know about contracting, which is a skill I use to this day. Um,
Absolutely.
Committed to the industry, got his CAE, been very successful. I think that's an interesting story. Lessons learned from someone coming from the field as a subject matter expert into nonprofit management, and how does that
Excellent.
directly compare? So happy to share his
That
name
would
with
be
you.
interesting.
Yeah,
Sounds great. Well, thank you again, Bill, for the time. I know it's precious and valuable, so we appreciate you jumping on and
sure.
sharing with our audience.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Happy to share.